Hi folks, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you very much for joining me today. Many of you probably don't remember back in October the 23rd. We were probably right on the edge of nuclear war and we weren't told. The defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, made phone calls to defense ministers of 4 NATO member countries to tell each of them that Ukraine was planning to detonate a dirty bomb on its own territory. 3 of the 4 recipients of this information, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States, responded that with an unusual joint statement. It was unusual, denouncing the claim. The 4th country he evidently called was Turkey. Most of the nuclear preparation information that's put out is put out for adults. How adults should react and what we should do. If we do get a warning that a nuclear bomb is coming, you might have anywhere from 3 minutes to maybe a half an hour, it used to be, to get to a shelter. We are told to take shelter for at least 24 hours after the blast. If a blast happens at night, you're probably at home with your loved ones. But if it happens during the day, you are separated from family members. During that 24 hours, you're told not to travel anywheres, to stay sheltered in place. Depending on the blast zone and the fallout, we are told do not venture out to try and get into contact to meet up with loved ones. Myself, I have grandchildren who are in school, and it just makes my stomach sick to think what would happen if a nuclear blast occurred during school hours. According to a census back in 2021, there was 54.2 million students currently in school. That is just between kindergarten and 12th grade. That does not include preschool or college students. This here is a scenario of a nuclear blast, a 10 kiloton bomb, which is considered small by nowadays standards, for the area of New York City. And you can change the direction that the winds go for the fallout. See that? For just this small blast area from a small 10 kiloton nuclear weapon, they estimate there would be 890 fatalities. Injuries would be 238,950. In the center would be the fireball effect, right there. The amount of damage would depend on the height of the detonation. If it touches the ground, the amount of radioactive fallout is significantly increased. Anything inside the fireball is effectively vaporized. The next area, the red, would be heavy blast damage. Heavily built concrete buildings are severely damaged or demobilized. Fatalities approach 100%, often used as a benchmark for heavy damage in cities. The next area would be moderate blast areas. Injuries are universal. Fatalities are widespread. The chances of fire starting in commercial and residential buildings, damage is high, and buildings also damaged are high risk of spreading the fires, often used as a benchmark for modern damage to cities, just for a 10 kilogram nuclear weapon. The next area is ionizing radiation dose, likely fatal in about 1 month if you stay in that location. 15% of survivors will eventually die of cancer or the result of exposure. The next area is thermal radiation burns. Third-degree burns exist throughout the layers of the skin and are often painless because they destroy the pain nerves. They can cause severe scarring or dismemberment and can require amputation. 100% probability for third-degree burns within this location. And then we got what they call the light blast zone. This is because of the pressure from the blast will break probably just about every window things will fly through the air and cause multiple injuries. Most schools have lots of windows, lots of flying glass. If they're outside, the children are outside on recess, they may see the blinding flash of the nuclear weapon and have temporary blindness. Drivers of automobiles will be temporarily blinded. The roads would be clogged with autos that have drivers not being able to see where they go and crash into each other, and possibly even going through the playgrounds. Or maybe they're outside waiting on the buses. And so these cars where people can't see where they're driving might end up running into the children or other civilians. The next layer, which is in yellow, is the fallout. Let me bring this out. They say within 24 hours, the fallout will diminish by about half, supposedly. I guess it would depend on the size of the nuclear weapon. Also depending on the type of detonation. You could get an idea about how much radiation by the plume. If you see an air gap at the cap of the nuclear blast, here's two examples. What we have is the steam cap at the top with a gap in between. That would mean in that location there would be less fallout, but it would travel high up into the jet stream, possibly as high as 5 miles, and it would fall in hot spots, depending on the direction of the wind. If there's no gap between the nuclear blast, it's just all brown and black, well, you can expect a lot of radiation to fall. The most deadly is the gamma radiation that would fall within that location. Weather conditions also have a significant effect. If there's heavy rain within 18 hours of a nuclear detonation, different states close by might experience hot spots that exceed 1 rad per hour. These hot spots would require protective action, protective clothing, even hundreds of miles or more downwind from ground zero. In your prepper supply, if you can afford it, a Geiger counter might be helpful. The wind direction and speed can change with the altitude, which can cause the fallout to be deposited in more than one direction. The latest update I could find for New York City, they are currently have wind advisories out about 60-mile-an-hour winds that could spark power outages and flight delays. And they have a current map of the wind directions. So that's something else to consider if there was a nuclear blast during times of weather. Then I thought more about the schools. How prepared are the schools to keep the children sheltered in place for 24 hours? How many bandages do they have? How many tourniquets do they have for injuries that the children might have from a nuclear blast? Because I live in South Dakota, I decided to do one of the major cities that would be targeted, which would be Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And you can see the fallout depending on the winds, how far it goes. Estimated fatalities would be 7,580. Injuries would be 13,550. For a 10 kiloton nuclear blast, it would be almost a mile's worth of heavy building damage. For moderate blast damage, it would be probably about almost 2 miles. This is an area where fires would start and secondary fires would start. Buildings would become probably uninhabitable. 500 rums of radiation, likely fatal, in about 1 month. 15% of the survivors will eventually die of cancer or other related illnesses. And then we got the thermal radiation, the thermal blast, where people would have burns. It also says that it would be painless because it would destroy the nerves. And then blast damage from flying debris, glass, things like that, would be about 13 miles. Fallout of 1 rad per hour, where you would have to stay indoors for at least 24 hours, if not more. The other one is 10 rads per hour, and then the next one is 100 rads per hour, depending on wind direction. Like I said, the wind could change a lot. Let me bring this out. Rapid City, South Dakota. 6,180 fatalities, 7,800 injuries. And let me bring this out for the radiation in the blast zone. Let's see, the blast damage is there, and then light blast damage. You got to worry about flying debris and glass and things like that. That would be 20 kilometers, which would be about 12 miles. Let me bring this out and we'll move the weather depending on the winds. Yeah, we got Box Elder, Summit, Sturgis, Spearfish. Yeah, not good. For the city of Chicago, we got 93,230 people that would be killed, probably vaporized. Estimated injuries is 118,430. And we'll bring this out to show you. Let's see, the wind. Where's the wind thing at that I can change? Often the winds come off the lake. Yeah. Depending on the area of Los Angeles, California, yeah, you would have 11,360 people probably vaporized. Injuries would be 29,340. And then we got the winds. Yeah. Let me bring this out. So one of the things I was thinking about for our local schools, to take them extra bandages and tourniquets for the children, and the teachers could possibly be injured if a nuclear explosion happened during school hours. If they were temporarily blinded, you would definitely have that trauma for the children to deal with, and then the injuries and seeing their fellow students injured. It would be very traumatic for them. Does your local school have any type of plan for a nuclear explosion, a nuclear war? I don't think mine does. Most help would not come for up to 72 hours. Do you realize that? The blast would knock out landlines, it would knock out communication, cell phones. You might be able to get information from outside the area for cell towers and communication that were not affected, that you could probably pick up if you're within these areas. But if you have no power, how are you going to get a hold of loved ones? You won't. Do your children know what to do in the event of a disaster? Do they know to stay at the school? It could be up to 3 days before you could come and be reunited with them. Yeah, something that they don't talk about is the children, and if something like this happened during school hours. And what about the children that might be home alone? You know, what they call latchkey children. You know, and it depends on the age of the child. Would they be able to survive by themselves for 3 days? Would they know to stay inside and not go outdoors? If there was older children in the home, would they know how to do first aid for the flying glass and injuries that they possibly could have for the younger children? Do you have food in the house that doesn't require power that they could eat? Because more than likely, you know, they would have a microwave, but yeah, if the power's out, they're not going to be able to even microwave food. Do you have 3 days of food in your home for your children to survive on? Water, something to drink, etc.? Do you have bandages and tourniquets? And yeah, are they at least partly prepared for a disaster and first aid? Like I said, the psychological effect on the children just makes my stomach sick. What are your thoughts? Put your comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you later. God bless y'all. Bye.